All right. Good morning, Law Juniors. How the hell are you? We're back broadcasting. Missed you guys last week. Didn't do a dispatch, I think, last Friday, but I'm back and I'm going to give you guys some new material today, for better or worse, new material. All right. Grading period 5 ends today, this week. So get work into your teachers. We're going to have to submit grades next week, probably Wednesday. All right. Hopefully you took a look at the agenda. There's actually a do now. I asked you guys to look up a couple of words to give us an entree point into this little ditty that we're doing today on Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Transcendentalists. Ralph Waldo Emerson, I know that doesn't sound very sexy, but the dude is super cool. He's sort of like the godfather of romanticism to some extent. Even Whitman kind of looked up to him like, oh, wow, you're the man. Right. So again, glance over the agenda as always, and then you'll hit this video link. I'm giving you a brief piece called Self-Reliance today by Ralph Waldo Emerson to look at, and I'm actually going to read it to you at the end. And then there are some basic study questions that are also attached at the bottom of the document here. So you should have the piece, and you should have some questions typed for you with love by me. I think some of them even refer to line numbers. You'll notice line numbers on the text, and I'll flash the text up here at the end of this barrage that I'm about to hit you with and read it to you for what it's worth. All right. So the do now asks you to look up two words. One was transcend and one was aphorism, right? Transcend is the one I want to look at more closely because we're looking at the Transcendentalists. Emerson was the figurehead of this movement called Transcendentalism, which is really an offshoot of Romanticism. So this week, we're looking at a different sort of corner of romantic philosophy in American literature. We're looking at Emerson, and on Friday, I'm going to give you guys a piece by Thoreau called Civil Disobedience. Pretty freaking famous. Perhaps you've heard of it, right? It means going to jail for what you believe in and breaking the law responsibly. All right. So, and these are both uniquely American inventions that bubbled up out of our own weird ideology that we've been studying all year. So, transcend, the transcendent transcendentalists. Look, I have visual aids. Imagine this was the chalkboard. To transcend, to go beyond a limitation or boundary, to cross over to a higher level. So you're breaking on through to the other side. Let me flash that again for you there. Hopefully that's something like what you got. If not, there you go. Transcend. Latin cognate, Spanish speakers. There's probably a pretty close Spanish word to it, right? So transcend, to go beyond, all right? What are these guys trying to go beyond? You know damn well what they're trying to go beyond. It's part of this larger romantic movement that's happening, right? So they're trying to go beyond society and tradition. Tradition is like an iron cage that you inherit from your parents. It keeps you from being the real you. As San Franciscans, we must pursue ourself and discover our true selves, right? Where did this weird corner of American philosophy come from? It comes from the Transcendentalists and the Romantics, all right? Who are you really when you get away from the crap of society, the noise of the city? Who are you really when you blanch away all of that bullshit that society's programmed into you, right? Remember, you're corrupted and poisoned by society. So they're trying to transcend society and tradition, right? This is also when Americans stop being British. They're like, we don't have to do things like the British anymore. Let's stop drinking tea with our pinky in the air, for example. Let's stop writing those ridiculously long sentences like Poe writes in, right? Who are we trying to impress here? Let's just be Americans. So it's a Declaration of Independence, part of the larger cultural Declaration of Independence from Britain. And we're talking about Ralph Waldo Emerson is instrumental in all this. That's why I'm dragging you through him. They're also trying to transcend Christianity. They're going beyond Christianity, right? And you'll hear about Emerson's idea of God. It's very much in concert with what Whitman's talking about. And it's very much not the machine universe, right? The God, the clockmaker thing, where the universe is a giant mechanism. The Romantics hate that. Remember, they rebel against that. So they're trying to transcend society and tradition. They're trying to transcend Christianity. They're trying to transcend logic and reason. The Romantics, especially Emerson, believe that there are forms of understanding and truth beyond what our senses can conceive of, and certainly beyond the boring ass purview of numbers, science, logic, math. These can yield certain truths, right? That's why cars work, and that's why we have hot showers and stuff. But that there's other larger truths which transcend our pathetic categories of logic and reason, right? The universe is bigger than just a bunch of numbers and what our pathetic little minds can conceive of. Again, we're a piece of a larger thing going on, right? So Those are the big three things, okay? And this is, again, the philosophy of transcendentalism. So transcend is a key part of that word, all right? Let's look at three specific romantic motifs. There's so many romantic motifs, it gets a little crazy. You guys just finished some papers. A lot of you talked about emotion and nature, among other things. Let me focus on three romantic motifs that are going to be essential for Emerson and Thoreau. So these are the motifs of the week, if you like. And I wrote them down for you. Key romantic motifs. All right, we're going back to individualism, hardcore individualism. Nonconformity, which we talked about. Hopefully you remember what that means. It means don't do what everybody else is doing. If everybody is doing it, it's probably lame or wrong, something bad about it, right? So do not conform. Do not follow others in behavior or thought. Do not follow the tenets of society. Again, we're trying to break through that stuff to free ourselves. It's this act of liberation and independence. We're trying to break free of that which has enslaved us mentally, right? But also physically. So don't conform. Nonconformity is essential. And of course, rebellion in various forms, mental rebellion, but also, as you're going to see with Thoreau on Friday, physically putting your body on the machine to stop it if you do not believe in what the machine is doing, right? John Brown, for example, I know you guys talked about John Brown in Bromwell's class, right? This guy put his body on the line, said slavery is wrong, right? I'm going to physically intervene. Okay, of course, he took up arms, and you'll see civil disobedience is being arrested for it, passive civil resistance. All right, so once again, individualism, nonconformity, and rebellion, the holy virtues here. The other word I wanted to look up is aphorism, which is just a nice, pithy little neat saying, a little nugget of wisdom, right? Emerson has a nice one. Good men must not obey the laws too well. Good men must not obey the laws too well. It seems paradoxical, but again, if the laws are part of society, the good man or woman remains apart from that, thinks for themselves, right? And is not just a mindless cow who follows the herd, sniffing the butt of the creature before it. All right, so we're talking about romantic rebellion continued, basically. All right, so Emerson and Thoreau, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I want to talk about Emerson just a little bit. You should look him up online or something, see a picture of this marvelous man. He has a dorky name and he looks a little dorky, but this guy, pretty interesting character. Briefly, he's born in a long line of ministers, Puritan ministers. He found it restrictive, but he went to a priest school and became a Unitarian priest. But then the love of his life died, his wife died, almost like a Poe-like situation. It completely broke him. And he started having serious doubts about the Christian faith. And what he did is he sat down and ended up meditating from his own soul, or whatever you want to call it, a radically new way to understand religion and spirituality. And you guys have a sense of some of this, right? But let me go into a little more detail, if you'll indulge me. Emerson was a pantheist, which means pantheism means God's everywhere, right? And that's how it was for Emerson. God was spread throughout the universe, from every kernel of sand through every molecule that you're made of, through the entire universe, that he's universally distributed almost. What that means is you are a smaller part of that larger whole, right? And you get this all through Whitman, right? But Emerson is really the wellspring of this idea. We also talked about the notion of the oversoul. Jim Casey in Grapes of Wrath gives a rousing speech, perhaps you recall, talking about maybe God is just a little bit of energy from everybody. We're all giving off energy, and together collectively, that's what holds the earth together. And so it's kind of communist vision of God, right? Where everybody's a little piece of it, but it's also this larger holistic vision of we are all connected in some fundamental way, right? Kind of a beautiful sentiment. The oversoul is what God is fundamentally, according to Emerson. And those of you who are big fans of the Star Wars series know that this is basically the metaphysical concept behind the Force. I believe I talked about this when we were reading Grapes of Wrath, right? The Force is Emersonian religion. Jim Casey at the beginning of Grapes of Wrath is Emerson. Remember, he left religion just like Emerson did. And he's starting to think for himself. Oh, there's the fire truck. He's starting to think for himself and tune in to these larger harmonics and energies and stuff like that. And so Jim Casey in the Grapes of Wrath at the beginning of the book pretty much is Emerson. Steinbeck said that, right? And then, of course, he turns into a commie by the end, of sort of Emersonian Marxist by the end of Grapes of Wrath. All right. Emerson's influence was incredible. He started this thing called the Transcendental Club, and he would invite all these cool dudes from the Boston area to come hang out and talk about big ideas. Uh-oh, boy, something's happening up the street there. Whitman describes his life as, I was always simmering on the outskirts of society, right? Not a conformist, Whitman. Didn't follow the crowd. Told you guys, bisexual, right? Thought for himself. God bless him. Okay, but his influence was stunning. Well, Whitman's was, but again, Emerson was the guy that Whitman looked up to. Whitman said, I was simmering my whole life. After Emerson, I was boiling. So this is the sort of effect that this guy's thinking could have on brilliant minds, and indeed influenced damn near everybody. Emerson was one of the only people who criticized the Mexican-American War in the middle of the 1800s, where America basically stole half of Mexico's land. Emerson's sitting there on the side going, this is complete robbery. This is a complete prostitution of everything that America was supposed to stand for, freedom and all that stuff, right? And it was the beginning of American imperialism as we understand it today. Emerson, one of the few people sitting there calling America out on its bullshit. All right, so you kind of got to respect that. All right, I think I've talked at you long enough. Again, look up Emerson's picture. I want you to have a picture of the guy. All right, but let's look into some screen sharing here so that I can share a read of this document called Self-Reliance, which again is attached at the bottom of the email, and study questions to go along with it. But why don't you just enjoy the words of Emerson right now? It's a very, very short piece, barely 2 pages. All right, I'm gonna read it at you and then leave you guys to your business to get this work done. Let's try and get it done by Friday. Let's try and keep some accountability, even though we don't know what the grading policy is, and due dates are fluid. All right? But nonetheless, if you guys have some grading period 5 stuff you got to get to me, I'd get on top of that. I really, really, really would. Let me see if I can access my own thing here. Hold on, bam. There we go. Okay. Oh, shit. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm still going. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Still mastering the tech, folks. All right. Oh, let's see if I can even access the thing now. All right. Self-Reliance, ladies and gentlemen, by Ralph Waldo Emerson. There's a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that he must take himself, for better, for worse, as his portion, that though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him but through his toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to him to till. Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string. Accept the place the divine providence is found for you, the society of your contemporaries, the connection of events. Great men have always done so and confided themselves, childlike, to the genius of their age, betraying their perception that the absolutely trustworthy was seated at their heart, working through their hands, predominating in all their being. Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. He who would gather immortal palms must not be hindered by the name of goodness, but must explore if it be goodness. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. Absolve you to yourself, and you shall have the suffrage of the world. I remember an answer which, when quite young, I was prompted to make to a valued advisor who was wont to importune me with the dear old doctrines of the church. On my saying, what have I to do with the sacredness of traditions if I live wholly from within? My friend suggested, but these impulses may be from below, not from above. Here, folks. I replied, they do not seem to me to be such, but if I am the devil's child, I will live then from the devil. No law can be sacred to me but that of my nature. Good and bad are but names very readily transferable to that or this. The only right is what is after my constitution, the only wrong, what is against it. And then notice you have some very convenient vocabulary words there at the bottom of the page. Use them. What I must do is all that concerns me, not what the people think. This rule, equally arduous in actual and intellectual life, may serve for the whole distinction between greatness and meanness. It is the harder because you will always find those who think they know what is your duty better than you know it. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But the great man is he who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. For nonconformity, the world whips you with its displeasure, and therefore a man must know how to estimate a sour face. The bystanders look askance on him in the public street or in the friend's parlor. If this aversion had its origin in contempt and resistance like his own, he might well go home with a sad countenance. But the sour faces of the multitude, like their sweet faces, have no deep cause, but are put on and off as the wind blows and a newspaper directs. The other terror that scares us from self-trust is our consistency, a reverence for our past act or word, because the eyes of others have no other data for computing our orbit than our past acts, and we are loath to disappoint them. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with his shadow on the wall. Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradict everything you said today. Ah, so you shall be sure to be misunderstood. Is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Martin Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood. All right? The words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, ladies and gentlemen, still leaping off the page 170 years later. And notice what he's saying. It's not easy to be a nonconformist, but any self-respecting human being should be, basically. All right? So there you go. Reread that at your leisure. I've included it as an attachment. And then you guys got a question sheet as well. Let me flash off of this. Stop share. Stop sharing. Okay, cool. Yeah. So there is that as well. Notice that number 8 asks you specifically about aphorisms, right? Copy down 3 aphorisms and explain what they are saying with 2 to 5 sentences each. Again, Emerson's known for these hard little nuggets of pure philosophical wisdom, short, pithy sayings that have a real punch, right? Also known as aphorisms. So for number 8, I'd like you guys to just pick out 3 really saucy, short statements and just give me a little response. Give me a little response. Number 1 through 7, I think you'll find are pretty easy to answer, pretty short, right? Why don't you go ahead and try and answer in complete sentences, but I think you'll find that there don't need to be that many sentences. Also look for line numbers. In that text, there are line numbers to help you orient yourself and find the answer where you may. All right? So it's Ralph Waldo Emerson, Self-Reliance. Enjoy it, you guys. Try and get that into me by Friday. All grading period 6 work is sort of up in the air right now because, again, we're giving grades for grading period 5, and we don't have a grading policy on the semester yet. As soon as I know, I'll let you guys know. All right. Looks like a beautiful day out there. I hope all is well with you guys. Again, it's Tuesday. The idea is you guys are checking in with my little emails on Tuesday and Friday when I send them. Those are our classes. We're not having Zoom meetings, at least at this point. All right. And let's take a look at Emerson and Thoreau this week, the Transcendentalists, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget to transcend your own parameters and borders, the things that are keeping you in, like your walls during quarantine time. Anyway, hope you guys get a little sun. Hope you guys are doing okay. And I'll check in with you on Friday. Take it easy.